Quick heads up before we jump in, I had to re-record a few of these quests on a different account due to a recording issue. That said, welcome back to Storytime. The Shield of Arrav begins in the Varrock Castle when we speak with Raldo. He tells us about a book that has no clue where to find it, but it's probably somewhere in the library. Mind you, this is the royal librarian in a castle of one of the most powerful kingdoms in Gielinor, and he just can't be bothered to actually do his job. Anyway, I read the book. Basically, Arrav was a hugely famous hero during the Fourth Age. The Varrock's museum's prized heirloom was widely believed to have been his shield. Sadly, in the year 143 of the Fifth Age, the Phoenix Gang broke in and stole it. Despite a hefty 1,200 gold bounty, we're told that was a lot of money back then, placed by King Rold for the return of the shield, nothing became of it. The Phoenix Gang has since gone on to be one of the most powerful crime gangs in Varrock, and the 1,200 gold bounty still stands to this day. So after we show the book to the librarian extraordinaire, Reldo, we asked for more information on where we can find the Phoenix Gang. He doesn't know himself, but he asked us to speak with Barak as he's heard that he has some connections to the gang. Perhaps if Reldo spent less time gossiping and more time keeping up with his duties, he'd know where the books actually are and the library wouldn't be such a mess. We track down Barak in the Varrock Square when we bribe him, and he provides us with somewhat vague directions to the VTAM, I'm not sure, corporation, which is apparently a shell corporation of the Phoenix Gang in Southeast Varrock. After following those directions, and we find the Phoenix Gang HQ, and some truly masterful doublespeak from Straven here, it would appear that if we go and murder a contact of a rival gang, then maybe the Phoenix Gang will be willing to speak with us. Allegedly, of course. He doesn't speak for them because he doesn't know anything about them. So with zero hesitations, we go perform a hit on Johnny the Beard because organized crime is cool and we desperately seek outside validation and they need to know that we belong. We return to Straven with the intel that Johnny was carrying, and he tells us that, man, he admits he didn't know we was cool like that, and we're allowed to join the Phoenix Gang. After looking around inside the Phoenix Gang HQ, we find half of a shield, and Straven informs us that some years ago there was a big fight that led to the formation of a rival gang, the Black Arm, and they have the other half. Under the guise of wanting to prove our worth via sabotaging the Black Arm, Straven tells us the location of their HQ and informs us that old Charlie the Tramp is a Phoenix Gang member and may have some more intel on how to infiltrate the Black Arm HQ. For another 10 gold, Charlie gives us a scoop. He points us towards a Miss Katrin, who apparently is short-tempered and very dangerous. Hopefully the leader of this powerful organized crime syndicate does not know that I just murdered an operative of theirs like 10 minutes ago in broad daylight in a very busy pub just a few streets over. Anyway, we apply for membership and we're given a test. Katrin of the Black Arm needs us to steal 2 Phoenix Gang crossbows from their weapons storehouse. One is going to be used to commit a murder, and the other one will be stashed at a rival's house, so it looks like the Phoenix Gang was involved. We do as she asked, but I do wonder if she's thought this through. Either the plan is terrible, or I am severely underestimating the Varrock PD's ballistic team, and how they're somehow able to determine the make and model and or previous owner of a crossbow based purely on the bolt. Because she didn't ask us to steal any bolts. Secondly, stealing 2 crossbows is stupid because what if they just happen to check the Black Arm hideout and find the actual murder weapon? Either way, I guess that's not my problem. Once we return the crossbows, she allows us to join the Black Arm gang and we find the other half of the shield upstairs in a cupboard. A cupboard is also a pretty strange place to keep a treasure, considering that there are 3 empty treasure chests in the same room that have locks, but she's like, nah, just throw it in the cupboard. Nothing is more clear. These two are, without a doubt, the worst criminal organizations known to mankind. They need better background checks and information systems, to say the least. I'd also like to point out that I made 800 more gold from an afternoon of shearing sheep than I did from returning a priceless artifact that was missing for like 150 years to a literal king. The quest Rune Mysteries begins when we speak with Ariane at the base floor of the Wizard's Tower. She seems to have an urgent message for Archmage Cedrador, but for whatever reason, the door wizard Valina will not let her into the tower. She's heard of our daring rescue with Xenia and Lumbridge at the crypts during the Blood Pact, and she asks for our help. Since we're just kind of a go-with-the-flow sort of guy, we decide to help her out. Just then, the wizard Baran is attacked by some sort of magical monster thing. We pick up his staff, and we're able to cast a spell that seems to lure the monster. So we pull him over into this magical tractor beam and we save the day. Speaking with Ariane outside, she tells us that she's a seer and that the other wizards are jealous of people that have innate abilities, and so they kicked her out of the tower. She also admits that she's been seeing the tower burning, and she just wants to help them out and warn them about it, but they won't let her in or give her the time of day to explain. She asks us to speak with the wizards in the tower to find out what's going on, specifically to talk with Archmage Sedrador, who is the leader of the Wizards Tower, and her former mentor, Wizard Elleron. So we walk around and speak with everyone here. Elleron is Team Ariane. He supports her. He tells us that he's helped her hone her gift that the other wizards sort of dislike her for having. Baran, the guy that we helped downstairs, thinks that the attacks are the work of Zamorakian mages. Greyzag guards a lesser demon. He seems sort of suspicious and angry for some reason. He also apparently has imps. We'll find out in a little bit that seems to be raising a red flag to no one except for me for some reason. The wizard Mizmog seems to have some sort of beef with Greyzag, but he doesn't really provide us any information on what's going on. There's another wizard, Jalrist. All she really does is try to peddle me her split bark armor. Doesn't help with the current situation at all. Then we meet the wizard Triborn, who is absolutely hilarious. He tells us that there are thingamawats in the power beam, but then he tells us that the thingamawats wouldn't fit into the power beam, but there's also some sort of swirly, sparkly things, which could be what we saw earlier, or maybe it's just something else. The guy seems a tad bit lost about who he is and where, if he's a wizard or not, and whatever. But, you know, I think there's probably more to this. Then we speak with Archmage Sedrador himself, and he's just basically says that he has everything under control. He's going to cast a spell that he calls the Icenic Purge through the power beam that he figures will just kill whatever's in there. He also tells us that the real reason that Ariane was kicked from the tower is not because she's a seer, but because she is a red wizard, and they're strictly banned from the Wizard's Tower. And then, of course, there's the Wizard of the Door, Valina. She doesn't give us any information, but she does sort of not like Ariane very much, it seems. We return to Ariane with all this information, and she clarifies that she is indeed not a red wizard, but instead simply spoke to a demon one time. We find out that the Wizard's Tower has a zero tolerance for demonology, and that's the reason she was kicked out. She also does not agree with Archmage Sedrador's plan. She basically says that the Icenic Purge is a total shot in the dark, and he has no idea what he's doing. He just figures that maybe that would help, but she does not subscribe to that theory. She is also happy that Elleron is on her side. She seems to be very fond of him. We also tell her what Wizard Triborn says related to the thingamawats and the swirly, sparkly things. So she figures that because he says they're coming up from the old tower, that we should go down there and check it out. The current Wizard's Tower is built above the ruins of the old Wizard's Tower, and some of it is still intact down there. There's quite a few rumors going around suggesting that it has something to do with the water surge spell, but no one's been able to figure out how to get down there, apparently, except for Archmage Sedrador, and he doesn't reveal that information because of some sort of code of ethics or something, I guess. I'm not really sure why it's a big deal. Ariane tells us that Elleron may be able to help because he's been around the block a bit, so we go and talk to him about the whole water surge concept, and he tells us that that's basically wrong and that many people have tried and wasted a lot of runes trying to open the door by casting water surge on it. But he tells us there may be something to water surge. He can't help us directly, even though he sort of hints that he'd like to, but he points us towards some books written by the former Archmage Parian that may be able to help. Apparently Parian was also quite into music. Downstairs in the library, we find a book called The Harmony of Runes that was written by Archmage Parian. Basically, it goes over that magic is music and that the 12 notes of the chromatic scale are the 12 basic runes. So we go down after reading the book and we use the organ that's in the library and play the note that would relate to the rune cost for water surge. And that gives us a key. We take that key to Ariane and we head down into the old tower basement. The room we enter is called the Chamber of Shrines. It was a meeting place for wizards of the old tower. Inside, there's also a Rune Guardian, which is basically a multiple choice-based sorting hat that puts us into our wizard order that seems to just be sort of on autopilot down here, because this is where recruits would have come after passing their preliminary tests, and this would be like their official indoctrination into the order of wizards here at the tower. So further on, we find a large gap in the staircase. We use a nearby statue to bridge that gap. The statue is of Eratona the Green, who isn't particularly important in this quest, but we do find out through Ariane that she was instrumental in being able to transport runes from the Rune Essence mine back in the day, which I'm told is quite a big deal. We continue on to find ourselves at the base of the power beam that's up in the current tower. Ariane refers to this as the heart of the tower, and there are quite a few swirly sparkly things. Ariane casts what seems to be some sort of magical identifying circle, and we lure over one of them and hold it in that circle long enough for her to ascertain more information of it. And she finds out that it's not actually a creature or a monster, but rather a soul fragment from one of the previous wizards that put part of their soul into the power beam. Ariane also suspects that whatever happened to the original tower probably had something to do with this, and there was an enchantment that had been removed very recently, she suspects within the last couple of days, that has somehow allowed these vortices or swirly sparkly things to run wild and get up into the current tower. Ariane says that she can repair this enchantment, but she's worried that Archmage Segidor is going to cast his Icenic Purge before that, and since these vortices seem to be attracted to magic, she thinks that they're just going to go straight up in there. We'll never be able to get rid of them after that. So we head back up to the top to distract Segidor to give Ariane time to repair the enchantment. Segidor won't talk to us at all, so we go over to the organ and just start playing random notes, which causes him to be interrupted and buys Ariane enough time to finish casting her spell. I think it's a little odd that the Master Wizard doesn't realize that the spell that he just saw was not actually his spell completing, but a different one. He basically is real sassy about this too and tells us to go pat her off to our little friend and tell her that he solved the problem all by himself like a big boy. We go back out to speak with Ariane, and she confirms that the enchantment restoration was completed and the vortices are trapped once again. She also fears that this isn't quite over yet, and she plans to return to the ruins to determine what happened down there, and more specifically, who undid the enchantment. Rune Memories begins in the ruins of the old Wizard's Tower, and Ariane again needs our help. She wants to cast a special divination spell on the base of the power beam that will reveal some information about the magical effects. She's hoping it'll tell us who removed the original enchantment that was placed before the events of the Rune Mysteries quest. She screws up the spell and ends up getting stuck in the power beam. She thinks we can free her if we disrupt the source of the beam. She won't let us go get any help, otherwise we'd get in trouble for being down here. Seeing as that we're in a real pickle here, we decide to trust Ariane's plan and hopefully disrupt the power beam somehow to free her. She gives us some runes to use on the vortices that are in the area here to extract the soul fragments from the long past wizards of the old tower. We use the runes to get a couple of the soul fragments out. We head off to the old tower library to attempt to trigger a rune memory. Quest name. By placing the soul fragment runes into some chairs. We get a cutscene from Kelvin the Red and Mai the Gray, talking about how he wants to create more powerful combat magic spells that ignore defenses. But in Kelvin's research, he may have accidentally instead solved an age-old teleportation problem. We'll get back to that later. Mai suggests showing this research to Azarus, as she's been working on the teleportation problem for years and would know better than anyone as to its viability to a solution. Ariane tells us the teleportation problem they're referring to is that in order for a teleportation spell to be useful, it needs to be able to bypass obstacles, which is a no-brainer. This is what separates a teleportation spell from something just like moving an object. She uses the example of Earth Strike, how it moves a rock from the caster to the enemy, but that rock couldn't go through a wall. Kelvin was trying to make it so that his surge spells could travel through a different plane to bypass enemy defenses, and this is what Mai thinks could be a solution to the teleportation problem. By moving a caster through a different plane, they'd be able to bypass physical objects on the material plane. Ariane gives us some more runes, and we get busy collecting some more wizard souls. This time we get a Law, Nature, Chaos, and Cosmic rune that we can use to gather souls from the heads of each order. The next cutscene we get is in the Chamber of Shrines, and it's a meeting between the order leads. We have Teramin the Gray, Zanmaron the Red, Unia the Blue, and Azarus the Green. They mostly just sort of throw some gentle shade at each other before Azarus shares with them the spell framework needed to create new teleportation spells for the first time. Azarus lies to them when they ask who came up with this, and she claims it to be her own work, despite it obviously being developed by Kelvin, but he is not in this meeting. She instead claims that Guthix is her muse and has shared with her the necessary inspiration for this breakthrough. And with that little white lie, the memory wizards head off to dig deep into this issue with newfound information on an old problem. We share what we saw with Ariane, and she finds it really odd that the Green Master would have stolen a Red Apprentice's work, and suggests that we go to the wizard's studies and hopefully find one that's still intact and able to trigger more memories about what happened next. After a bout of trial and error with some chairs, we are able to trigger another cutscene. This time between Kelvin and Zanmaron, who is master and apprentice to the Zamrak Order, the Red Wizards. And Zamorak tells Calivan what all happened in that meeting and is mad for a couple of reasons. Number one, the Red Wizards are not going to get credit for this incredible breakthrough, and frankly, they deserve it, and he's kind of peeved about that. But he's mostly mad that Calivan is all chummy with the other wizard factions. He reminds them that this is not how things work, and the tower is great because the orders are in constant conflict with each other, and that's able to help spur competition and progress, but not to be buddy-buddy because that doesn't help anyone. Then Zamorak basically tells Calivan to piss off and that he's going to get to the bottom of this by himself so that the Red Order will at least get some credit. Calivan leaves, and Zamorak summons Azakrox. It's a demon that is known as the Keeper of the Key to the Abyss. It would appear that this is the reason that the Abyss is used for all of the modern teleportation spells, and somehow they don't go into great detail here. He's able to get the key to the Abyss from Azakrox. This basically gave Zamorak access to a different plane of existence in order to complete Calivan's, or publicly Azaras's, theory. We return to Ariane, and she tells us that Zamorak would have given this ritual information to everybody else. So we head back to the library to try to trigger another rune memory that would show this sequence. In the library, we get a cutscene from all of the apprentices. So Perian the Blue, Mai the Gray, Calivan the Red, and Slan the Green. And then, of course, Zamorak is here as well. And Zamorak confirms that he's completed the ritual that Azaras asked for help with earlier in the Chamber of Shrines. So he gives a copy of this ritual to all of the apprentices and tells them to go and return to their respective masters and to get ready to cast the spell. They'll be doing that in the spell casting room basically immediately. The ritual itself needs 8 people that have to stand in a specific pattern. Any deviation from this layout, he tells us, could be extremely dangerous. And the ritual itself is going to open up a permanent connection between the material plane and the Abyss, which would allow teleportation spells to use that connection to travel anywhere in the world. We're able to determine a specific pattern by locating some document fragments and piecing it together. And we place the memory runes in the correct order. And we get another cutscene of the memory wizards performing the ritual. And a demon is spotted by Perian the Blue. And it comes to light that this is obviously not a green magic spell because the root of the spell not actually belonged to Azaras, but instead was Calivan's work. The blue wizards peace out in the middle of the ritual, not wanting anything to do with this demonology, despite Zamorak's warnings of bad things happening. Zamorak appears to get hit by the power beam after the control of the ritual was lost. This seems to cause some sort of disturbance outside the memory as well, and Ariane is also hit by the beam and falls into a magical coma. We rush off to get Elrond's help and find out that he is actually behind all of this, and he is really a red wizard. He tells us that Perian the Blue and Calivan the Red were the only 2 survivors of that ritual, and as we already know, Perian founded the second wizard's tower, but Calivan went into hiding. He took an apprentice who took an apprentice, and thus begun the secret order of elite red wizards. Elrond tells us that he's the secret heir to the sacred tradition of the Staff of Fire. He plans to bring Zamorak's vengeance against the Wizard's Tower, like, right this second. As he's talking about this, Ariane rises up from the old tower through the power beam, and her body has been infused by all the soul fragments from the memory wizards. She explains that the soul fragments will soon overwhelm her body, and that she will explode and take the Wizard's Tower out with her. We use those runes to withdraw the soul fragments one by one from her body, and the fragments hop over to Elrond from our runes and teleport him to the Abyss to blow him up. Yeah. Ariane ends up being okay, thanks to our valiant effort. And once again, for those that have stuck around this far, thank you so much. If you're enjoying the story so far, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.